I gotta hold this up so that I know this is our second video. Otherwise, since I'm wearing the same clothes and we have the same background, I don't want to get the two videos mixed up. This is Pastor Barbara, aka Preacher with Parrots, aka Preacher with Parrots. This would be tape video number 2. It's still June 4th, 2017. We had a problem with our live cast, and I stopped because we had a logical time to stop. We're now going to get into something that you're going to find toward the end of this video rather important. We have one Bible that says Jesus sent out 70 people, and that's the King James Version. And the Hebrew Version. And we have another Bible, probably more than one, but the New International Version and the Greek Version says he sent out 72. Do they not know how many Jesus sent out? Well, when we get to that, we're going to speak about what true dedication is first. Having done that, we will get into him sending out the 70 or the 72, and I will explain to you why. Some Bibles say one and some say the other. It has nothing to do with their not being sure. It has to do with the way something was written and how two different people looking at the same thing see something slightly different. It's not a matter of great importance. It's not like, is such and such a sin or is it not a sin? That would be terrible if we had half the Bibles disagreeing with the other half. This is something, is it was a matter of something that was written on the page that was interpreted differently by different people. It doesn't have to happen to be something that makes a great deal of difference, for which we're very glad. Now, we have just ended in John 8, and we're going now to Luke. We also have just a few chapters, a few verses here, and it has where Jesus reads, for the last time, Galilee, Nazareth, Samaria. We're talking Los Angeles, we're talking California, we're talking United States. I happen to be in California, some 90 100 miles from Los Angeles. But I can be in California and I can be in the United States at the same time. This is the last time that Jesus is going to be in the area where he was raised. Luke 9:51. It came to pass when the time was come that he should be received up, meaning it's time for him to go back to heaven with his Father. Before that happens, he has to die. He has to be resurrected. He spends another 40 days with his disciples, giving them a few more instructions, and then he's ascended into heaven. That has to happen first. So he's where he is now. He is north of Jerusalem by some 65 to 75, thereabout, miles. He's going to Jerusalem. It's in Jerusalem where he will be, where he will suffer, where he will be condemned, where he will be killed, where he will be buried, the same tomb from which he will rise again, and so forth. And the same area where he will be when the cloud lowers and he goes up in the cloud to be with his Father. This is Luke 9:51 to 56. It came to pass, the time came, that he would be received up and he steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem. He knew where he was going, and he knew what was going to happen when he got there. He sent messengers before his face, and they went and entered into the village of the Samaritans to make ready for him. They did not receive him because his face was as though he would go to Jerusalem. He gave them the impression, I'm not going to stay here a long time. And when his disciples, James and John, saw this, they said, Lord, wilt thou that we command fire to come down from heaven and consume them as Elias, which is another name for Elijah, the same name but in another language. And he turned and rebuked them, and he said, you don't know the manner of spirit you are. For the Son of Man has not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. And they went on to another village. In other words, he was going to stop there. They didn't receive him. The disciple says, they can't say they're not going to receive you. Shall we call fire down and do away with them? And Jesus said, I didn't come here to destroy people. That's not why I was born. That's not what I'm all about. I'm here to save people, not to destroy them. We go on now, and we're going to spend a couple of verses talking about what is true dedication to Jesus. And then we'll talk about the sending out of the 70 or 72. We're in the book of Matthew, chapter 8, verse 19. A certain scribe came and said, Master, I will follow thee whithersoever thou goest. Master, wherever you go, I will follow you. A scribe is an intelligent person, a person who knows a lot. There was no printing press. If you needed an exact copy, there was no copy machine. There was no fax. There was no printer. If you have something written down and somebody needed to write, or you were going to speak and you wanted something to write, someone to write down what you spoke, you needed a scribe. The nearest Latin-based word for that is similar to the Spanish word escribir, which is to write. Scribe, escribir, to write. And because they wrote and made copies of important things, you can't do that without learning what the thing you're copying is all about. Excuse me. So scribes were intelligent people. And he says, I'm going to go wherever you go. Jesus is getting ready to tell him, you don't know what you're in for. And I want to say we have some guests that are visiting. As soon as I get through with a few explanations here, we'll change and you will be able to chat. We have chat turned off while I'm teaching because I'm old and I'm easily distracted. Jesus said to him, foxes have holes. Some animals live in caves. Birds have nests. But the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. I don't have a home. You want to accompany me where I go. Do you realize that I don't have a permanent home? Another one of the disciples said to him, now, this is not one of the 12. This is someone who followed him in order to learn from what he was teaching. And another one said, Lord, suffer me to first go and bury my father. You know, I would like to follow you. I would like to be one of yours. But I got something I got to do first. Jesus is not unappreciative of the fact that all of us have family, we have friends, we have responsibilities. But Jesus says, follow me and let the dead bury the dead. Let those who are not spiritually minded take care of the things that are not spiritual. If you're going to be a follower of Jesus, then you can't always be up taking care of your personal stuff. That doesn't mean you never can, but Jesus is trying to make the point that those who are going to be spiritual have to dedicate themselves to spiritual things. That doesn't mean that they are going to stop being human beings. Now, Luke says, that was Matthew 8, Luke says about the same thing in Luke 9:57. And it came to pass, as they went the way, a certain man said to him, I will follow thee whithersoever thou goest. And Jesus said, foxes have holes, the birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. And then he said to another man, first let me go bury my father. Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead, but go thou and preach the kingdom of God. I'm calling you to be a preacher. You're going to have to let somebody else in the family do that, because I'm calling you to do spiritual things. That's going to be your priority. That doesn't mean you can never take care of spiritual things. It means your priority will be take care of the spiritual things. And I've called you to preach the kingdom of God. And another said, I will follow thee, but I first have to go to my home and say farewell to those that are at my house. This is the first two were the same that Matthew had said. Now he's added another one. And he said, no man, having put his hand to the plow and looking back, is fit for the kingdom of God. You can't start to do something and then remember, oh, but I've got to do something else first. And he's basically saying the same thing. That sounds like Captain. Captain? Sounds like he's a lot closer than what he really is. He's downstairs. They've been fed. They don't need anything. I don't know why he's sounding off. Other than his cage is near a window, he may be seeing something going on. Now we're coming to the mission of the 70, and we might even get through with this. I'm reading from, in fact, I had a bunch of Bibles out and I put them up. I should have left, let me reach over here and get another Bible. Well, I just dropped some tapes on the ground. Okay. This is New International Version, and in a moment I'll read from it. After these things, the Lord appointed other 70 also, besides the 12 that were with him all the time, And he had already sent them out. He had given them power and authority to preach, to heal the sick, and so forth. But now Luke 10, and Luke is the only one that um, gives us this account. After these things, the Lord appointed other 70 also, and sent them 2 by 2 before his face into every city and place whither he himself would come. Therefore said he to them, the harvest is great. The harvest is when whatever your crop is, because you do some planting, and then you do a little weeding. But in those days, you didn't have a garden hose. You prayed for rain. And most of your work was in preparing the soil and planting. Then just a little weeding, perhaps. But the big job was at harvest. I can remember my grandpa's farm. There were other farmers. Occasionally, they would hire somebody. But you know what usually they did? My grandpa, his sister-in-law and brother-in-law lived, well, we would say across the street. It was actually about a mile away or a couple miles away. He would come over to Grandpa's farm, and some other neighbors would come till there were about 5 or 6 of them. They'd work on Grandpa's farm. Then they'd all go over to somebody else's farm and work there. And then they'd all go to another farm and work there. So they all worked on everybody else's farm. Therefore, he said unto them, the harvest is great, but the laborers are few. A lot of people need to be saved. A lot of people need to be taught the Word of God. The job is big. We don't have too many people to do the job. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest that he would send forth laborers into his harvest. Now this is Luke 10. I'm going to get the other Bible now. And we are in Luke 10. After this, the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them 2 by 2 ahead of him to every town and place where he was about to go. He told them, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers to the harvest field. Go, I'm sending you out like lambs among wolves. Do not take a purse or a bag or sandals. Do not greet anyone on the road. And I'll go on in the other Bible. The reason being that this is chronological, and if more than one writer of the gospel mentions it, we study both of them at the same time. So while we're in the Gospels, we will be using this particular Bible. Now, was it 70 or was it 72? It was not a matter of what they saw written down. We don't have the New Testament, we don't have a Dead Sea Scrolls Bible for it. That's only in the Hebrew Bible, what we call the Old Testament. This was not a matter of somebody seeing the word 70 and writing the word 72. It wasn't a matter of they're not paying attention, because then we would say, well, do we know that they paid attention when they copied other books from the Bible? Was that a problem? Do we have to wonder if there's parts of the Bible where the scribe was not paying attention? Because we're not talking about the translator. We're talking about the scribe, the one who saw it in Hebrew and who copied it in Hebrew. We're not talking about the one that saw it in Hebrew and translated it to Greek. One of the things that all translators of the Bible do, and how good they are depends on how far back they go. They do not copy from a more recent, they did when the Living Bible came along. The Living Bible does not purport, they do not say we went all the way back to Hebrew. It doesn't say, well, the Greeks, the Bible that Jesus used was in Greek, and it was a translation of Hebrew. So if it's okay with the Jews, if they're satisfied, instead of going all the way back to Hebrew, we will go back only as far as the Septuagint, the Bible that Jesus used. And we'll start with one that is a little bit more recent. It has nothing to do with that. The original in the Hebrew, Captain, stinker. The original said, and this is, I find it, I think most of you know that I was a court interpreter. I did some translating. Translating is writing. Taking something in one language and writing it in another. Interpreting is listening to something in one language and speaking it in another language. So I was basically a court interpreter, although I did some translations. So I understand this problem totally. If you only know one language, and it's not putting somebody down, because we have skills that are different from other people's skills, and something that I might know a lot about and you don't know anything about, I'm sure there's things that you know a lot about that I have no clue about. So it has nothing to do with being intelligent. In the original, it says, he sent out 70. And then in parentheses was the word, and it's a Hebrew word, duo. You know, solo is one person, duet is two, trio is three, quartet is four. The word duo means two. So basically, what they were looking at was a page that said he sent out 70, and in parentheses, the word two. What does it mean? Can't tell you. I'm not looking at it. If I came upon something like that if the court had handed me a paper and said, would you translate this and read it into the record? And I came upon that, I was very precise. I was commended many times by many good perfectionist judges for being as precise as I am, because we're talking legal record. No place for mistakes. Just like here in the Bible, we've got a record. No place for mistakes. And I were reading that, and he sent out 70 to go and do such and such. I would say, as a precise person, Your Honor, may I explain something? Because it's not for me to decide what happens in a courtroom. If I'm going to do something other than which I've sworn to do correctly and that I always do, then I have to get the court's permission, the judge's permission to do something. I would have to say, Your Honor, may I explain something to you? Well, of course, the judge is going to want to know. And I would have to say, Your Honor, this says I'm sending out 70. But then in parentheses is the word to. And then it goes on to talk about something, and I don't know how to interpret this. I don't know what the word to in parentheses means following the word 70. So some translators, and they happen to be the ones, one of the ones who did the King James Version, which is an excellent, King James was not looking for Christians. He was looking for the best translators, interpreters he could find. And he got them. When the ones translating this came to it, they saw it. It had no real meaning for them, so they skipped over it and said, it says he sent 70. And they didn't mention anything about the two because it was in parentheses. It said two. It was not 72, or as they might have said back then, 70 plus 2, or 70 beyond that 2. Many ways of saying 70 and 2. So they just said 70 and just omitted the fact that in parentheses was 2. When another translator, years later, years before, forget from what language to what language they were translating. This is a matter of copying, not a matter of changing from one language to the other, not changing the meaning by the words you pick. They came and they read. Did you hear somebody knock on my door? I told somebody I would be through about 7:10. We'll see if they knock again. But I think this is probably a good place to stop. It's simply a matter of looking at it, seeing something strange, and determining whether to try to figure out what it meant or just leave it because it has no meaning. So we don't have a problem really between the 70 or 72. It's not a mistranslation. It's a matter of reading it and trying to determine if what's in parentheses has anything to do with the words that were just used or not. I'm going to end right here because we're almost at 30 minutes. We'll pick it up from here next week. Thanks for visiting us. We'll see you soon. Yeah, I'm having trouble turning this off as I did before. Okay, let me check and see. Barry, I'll be right back. I want to see it was a very light knock on the door, and it could be a neighbor who's up here only part-time. Let me check. I'll be right back. Georgette? Okay. I thought that I had heard a little 3 times, and I had got a call from a neighbor. They're part-timers, which means they come up this particular family comes up about once a month, once every 2 months. And they were up here and they called, and we were talking about whether we would get together today or not. And I told her, I said, well, if you're up to doing anything later on. By the way, I'm looking at this in Encoder Live, so I'm not on. I'm on a copy of myself. Do you see the words, Mary, that say Encoder Live preview window? Does yours say that? No? Okay. What that means is that this is a copy of the real thing. Well, it's hard for me to explain, but if you're broadcasting, and right now I'm only using one computer. I'm not even recording, but the recording has nothing to do with the casting. But if I were recording, or like right now, if I were to take the computer I was using and I'm not using now, and I were to enter the same link, it would be a copy on another screen of what is on this screen. I don't know why that would be important, but that's what it means, Encoder Live preview window. It means we're looking at a copy of the real thing. And, uh-oh, let me check. We've got a lag. 1, 2, 3. Oh, well, we got a 3-second lag. I think it was a little longer before, but anyway. About the video, I knew that eventually it would be for sale. I thought they would get a little bit more from, first of all, they had it on the 23rd. I called Apple Valley, which is about maybe 40 miles away, but it's not like 40 miles of freeway driving. Apple Valley is high desert, which means they're not quite as high as the mountain, but their terrain is desert. Apple Valley is where, I can't think of their names. You probably will know them. They were both, he and his wife were in the movies. They did Western movies, and their horse was named Trigger. when TBN first went on the air, I worked for them some when they had special programs and they needed special people to answer the phones and pray with people. Um, she was on a lot at the time. He came on once in a while. Uh, can you think of their names? Um, I just remember I have somebody that went to a church in Apple Valley today, and I told them, say hi to Trigger for me. He had his horse um, embalmed and stuffed, and they had it outside in front of their house. They used to joke about it. Anyway, um, that was going to be the closest place, and it was going to be at 7 o'clock at night. Well, I don't like to drive um, at night with glaucoma in an area that I don't know. I don't mind driving here in Lake Arrowhead. If I went to the spa or I went to the grocery store and it got dark, I don't worry about that. I'm just a few miles from home and I know the road. And there's not much traffic in Lake Arrowhead at that time. Um, that doesn't worry me. But anyway, like there was no way I was going to go. I called. I finally Googled to find out where it was. The other place was Riverside, and that's about 50, 60 miles from where I am. So there's no way I was going to do that. Then they had it for a second around June 1st, or they after the initial, then they said that some other theaters would be having it. I'm surprised that they didn't. It's 700 Club that produced it, and I'm surprised that they didn't mention it anymore. But Friday, they said for a donation of $15, you could get the video. Well, that usually means whenever they say something like that, you can only count on your income tax the difference between the cost of what they gave you. Now, I gave them $50 and I was going to get one video, and then I decided I would get two. So that would mean like a cost of 30. So I really only gave them 20. But I'm surprised that this soon you were able to get it. And I got it right away. So it'll be 2 to 4 weeks before I get it. But I got word yesterday and today from Israel talking about a Christian ministry that had done this historical thing about the 6-day war and how good it was. And so when the Jews are saying how good it is, they're pretty happy with it, and it's historical. So I'll probably want to see it 2 or 3 times. I'll probably have neighbors over once to see it, but I'll put it on the air at least once. And we'll see what happens. Anything, Mary, before I close? Now, Captain was fed this morning. And there's no reason in the world for him to be making the kind of noise he's making. What's the matter with him? But anyway, uh, if oh, you were playing with the iPad. Were you able to get it on? Were you able to? Um, you can't even watch on it. Wow. Let me go get my iPad because I don't know what mine's doing, but it was like 78 degrees 2 hours ago. It should be powered up. I should be able to get it now. I had purchased this thing for $100 and then dropped it and it cracked. It brings on the site. Okay, if it brings a site and you can't get the program, then I'm sure that it's an app. Yeah, this is. Um, so you get YouTube, right? If you don't, yeah, you get YouTube, then you can get the videos, but you hardly ever miss, so there's nothing for you to go back and see. Um, and this has got Tuesday, January 12th at 6:27 p.m. and it's probably 7:27. No, it's 7:20. Anyway, on the day that I remembered I had paid in case I dropped it to get a free one within the year. I had it for a couple of months and didn't do anything about it. And then on the very last day I called and they wanted me to come in the next day and they gave me an appointment. But on the day they gave me the appointment, it was past the 1 year. But because they gave me the appointment, I got the thing free. So I got the thing free, but it doesn't do anything. And now they're selling them at 80. Uh, but this one I need to play with it some too because it just, what I used it for, this says power off. Sign into Wi-Fi. It's not Wi-Fi. Okay. Do you have it connected to Wi-Fi? Oh, password. I'm not going to mess with that now. I have it somewhere written down. I also have the thing right here that I have to set it up. That's probably why I'm not getting anything. But you can get, yeah, you can get iVlog. Do you get the page where it shows everybody that's on? Now we're being featured. This happens to me. Okay, I'll wait till the rest come up and then I'll explain to them what we're doing. Okay, for those that are with us, that are viewing this by virtue of the fact that we're being featured, and you're just on the front page, um, I was just getting ready to close. I'm laughing because it's not the first time that I'm ready to close. In fact, it's 7:25 here on the West Coast, and I usually close my program at 7, but I was running over because we had a little problem. Uh, and by the time I got back on and finished what I was doing, I was past, and I was talking, just chatting with Larry, my super op, about a video. And so we're talking now, we're through with our program, and we're talking about our, um, uh, he's got an iPad, I've got a, I guess you call it a, what do you call it? Um, they don't call it an iPad if it's an Android. Anyway, um, we were talking about how we're not getting the full use out of this. No, I decided what I use it for, Larry, and the reason I had powered it up and I was going to use it today is the pictures that I showed you earlier on another computer. When I put it on a video, and I probably will do that before I go to bed tonight, when I put that on a video, um, I'll be using that computer for something else. And so what I did, okay, come on. Here's the one that's making all the noise outside. And here's another picture of it that's big. He's my boy. This, I took a picture from the screen, and this is what all they're going to see. This is on my cell phone. But I can take from my cell phone and email it over here. Now, not on this particular tablet. That was the word I was looking for. But it's, I can put this up in front of the camera, and you can get a large, I don't know what I've got here in front of it, but I have to mess with it also. But what I do is send myself an email of the picture, and there's a big difference between what you see here and what you see here. And if that's all I can get this thing to do, it's worthwhile for me to make some pictures available when I'm teaching something. But anyway, good luck. And I suggested you do write them because they're pretty good. And ask them if you need an app. And try first so that you can give them as much information as you can. But I think that I think that'll probably be the best place to go. You might go onto a site. I think Bender's on now. Somebody that has a lot of people there, somebody might know. But I still think you'll get the best information if you write to them. And I think I don't know about Sunday, but I'll bet if you I bet tomorrow you can get the information real quick. You can write now and get an answer back, I think. That's the reason that those that are viewing us by virtue of the fact that we're being featured, and they're getting just chatting because we're closing, and I laugh. We've been featured already today. This is the second time. So it isn't like they finally put us on and we're leaving before we're finished. We've been on, but just one of those things. Um, Anything, Larry, before we go? Um, I think that the information that, by the way, Trump is going to sign off for 6 months more on the. I got this from Israel. Uh, I haven't had the television on today, so I don't know what's happening to the thing in London, and I don't know, but Trump will not move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and I think I know why. And I think it's probably a smart decision. However, because during the campaign he said he would, it's going to seem like he's breaking a campaign promise. Because he has set himself up as the possible arbitrator between the Palestinians and the Jews over what they disagree on. And I read earlier, it was sent to me sometime day before yesterday, and I read it yesterday, that most of the Jews who live in Samaria, and we had that in our Bible lesson, this was Jesus leaving Samaria for the last time, going to Jerusalem, where he will then be killed in about a couple of weeks from the time that we read earlier today. Most of them understand that with the problem that they have of Palestinians believing it's their land and Israelis believing it's theirs, that the solution is really having parts of Palestine and parts of Israel in the same geography, in the same territory, in the same real estate. And of course, the Palestinians would like to have it all. The Jews would like to have it all. That's not a possibility. And they've pretty much accepted that's the way it's going to be. The big problem is Jerusalem. I think that because that's where the difficulty is between the Palestinians and the Jews, and since Trump has sort of brought himself in as the arbitrator, or the one who perhaps can seek peace, and the real only matter up for discussion is Jerusalem. That as the arbitrator, if he would move at this time the American embassy from Tel Aviv, which there's no question that's Israel, and move it to Jerusalem, where the Jews say it's theirs and the Palestinians say it's theirs, I think he feels that as the arbitrator, he should be neutral on that, which I think is a good thing. However, this was not an issue when the campaign was going on before he was elected president. And I'm sure at that time he had no idea that the United Nations would declare that Jerusalem belonged to the Palestinians. So he's kind of in a hard spot. And I think that his intention is to eventually move it. But he's going to do what all of the others presidents have done, every 6 months they say they will not do it for another 6 months. And I don't think he has much choice, except it means he's going to have to not do something. He's going to have to do something that he said he wouldn't do, or vice versa. Anyway, um, those that are watching us, we will suddenly leave, and they will immediately put somebody else up that might probably is discussing something a lot more interesting than what I am right now. Are we done, Larry? If we are, I'll see you Wednesday night. It's unusual that some of the things we're discussing on Sunday have a great deal to do with what's going on now. As far as myself personally, the reason I'm interested in Israel, there are those who want to know how close are we to the oh um, I don't think any of us really care about that. Um, yeah. Um, Let me be the one to do the honors. Um, uh-oh, what happened here? Well, it took me a while to finally get that job done. Um, anyway, I'm surprised that anybody would choose that for a name. That would get you banned real soon. Um, anyway, I will see you, Larry, on Wednesday. Good luck with your tablet. I hope you get it to do what you want it to. And I'll see you then. Have a good evening, and the rest of you will have somebody else pop up in just a minute, because I'm going to hit, you know what? Hang on, I got to check something. No, I don't know what happened. Okay, I'm finally. You know what? I'm going to have trouble logging out, Larry, and the reason is that I told you before, the encoder live preview window is that what you're seeing is a copy of the real thing, not the real thing. Therefore, I do not have in front of me the ability to close out. So I'm going to have to close out my own way of doing it, and the network will catch up with it. Or I will come back in again and try to close out. This is kind of a weird thing that's happening. So it may take a little bit of time for me to close out here, because things are kind of messed up. Anyway, I'll see you Wednesday, Larry. And to our guest, and you're welcome to join us anytime. Okay, let me see what happens here.